Panel Pals. Ooh, tasty. Hello there, boys and girls. It is I, Jules, here with my son, Ewan, and we are going to be doing something a little bit different today. In fact, we are launching a weekly news show where we talk about all the comic books that we've read during that week.
So many comics.
And we're going to call it Panel Pals, because it's nice and friendly and nothing but positivity.
Exactly.
Hello, my pal.
Hello, pal, fellow panel pal.
I know that we're familiar, but I'm still your dad.
Oh, right, okay.
Okay, so today we actually have been reading in the week of the September the 27th, we got 4 comic lines from, are we allowed to promote where we got them from, do you reckon?
Yeah, sure, fuck it. We got it from Travelling Man in Newcastle. So,
Good boys. So we've actually got today Star Wars Mace Windu. Mm-hmm. We've got Generations The Spiders. We've also got Dark Knight's Batman The Murder Machine.
Which is incredible. Just as great as it sounds.
Wait until we get to that one. And the biggie, the big longy.
The big longy.
Marvel,
In fact,
should we have called it Big Longy? Is that what we should call the show?
I don't know. But do you want to, you can do
sure.
thingy. So it's got a full cool
Look at that.
How great is that? Thanks, Marvel.
That's pretty insane.
That was a nice surprise. I picked that up.
So what we've done is we've read. So Ewan has read the Mace. He's read all of them. I've only read these 3 here. So he's going to be sort of giving you a little bit of review. We're just going to have a little chat about what we thought about them and where we think that the future series is going to go. Except for Generations, because that's obviously a self-contained thing.
Exactly.
So why don't we start with? We'll save the Marvel
save the big
legacy
one for the end. We're going to start with the small one.
Let's do this. Right, so tell me what you thought of Star Wars Mace Windu, Jedi of the Republic.
I was really disappointed.
Oh.
I was really disappointed.
Good to start the first
note to start off comic Panel Pals.
Panel Pals.
But yeah, no, because I really like Dennis Cohen. He does the art for this series, and I love him because he's such a key figure in DC during the 80s and 90s. He illustrated my favourite comic run of all time, which is The Question by Dennis O'Neil.
Okay.
I absolutely loved that series, my favourite comic character ever. So when I saw that he was doing Star Wars, and it was Mace Windu no less, I was like, oh boy, that sounds really good.
Oh boy!
Unfortunately, he's kind of let down by the dialogue and writing.
Ah, that's a shame. So is this the first issue?
Second issue.
Second issue.
Yeah, I read the last one last week.
So what's the sort of the basic storyline of this?
Basically, it's fairly derivative of the Clone Wars cartoons. Not to bash them or anything, they're really good. But it's set during the Clone Wars, right during its formative months, and it follows Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, the guy who was hyped up to be a thing and then
just completely bit it straight away, didn't he?
So it's about them doing a secret mission for the Republic. Very cliched, very archetypal. Here's some cool Jedi doing Jedi things.
I mean, it does raise the question. The Clone Wars wasn't actually that long a period of time in Star Wars. They've done so many covert missions that you almost think they must have been doing something every single day, maybe doubling down on it.
Yeah.
I don't think they had a day off, to be fair. No wonder the Jedi were knackered and got killed so easily.
Exactly. That was a strategy all along.
Yeah, well, it was,
Knock them out.
Because it was the Order 65 was them just knacker them out. just take them on runs and hikes and stuff like that as well.
It's just Anakin looking for the coffee.
Yeah, that's why he's so annoyed.
Yeah.
He's just like, ugh!
But it's really annoying because the series does it shows flashes of brilliance. There are brief moments where the writer Owens gives some brief pauses for Mace to reflect on the ideology behind the war.
Okay.
And it kind of goes into the religious tenets of the Jedi Order and kind of Windu contemplating his newfound role as a soldier with his pacifistic tendencies of the Jedi Order. And that's where the issue excels best. But for most of it, it's just action and just very cliche.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with action in comics. I mean, it is it's one of the main entertainments of it. And the art style does look exceptionally
Dennis
nice.
Cohen really gets emotion. He really knows how to if you remember the original, I'm going to butcher his name now, the Jenny Tedowski Clone Wars series from 2003.
Yeah.
Where Mace Windu pummels all the battle droids with his
bare
fists.
Yeah.
We don't get to see that, but the art style Dennis Cohen gets the motion and fluidity of what it would be to fight like a Jedi really well.
Okay. Well, that's cool. So it's not a series that's wowed you over, but you will be continuing with it?
I think I want to give it another chance because it is showing moments of brilliance, but compared to other Star Wars comics like Dr. Aphra and Darth Vader, I probably would give this a miss.
Okay, fair enough. Well, there we go. That was the Mace Windu Jedi of the Republic comic series. Let's move on now let's do Generations.
Yep.
So Generations is, for those of you who don't know, it's kind of like a collection of stories that...
A thematic prequel, I'd call it, to Marvel Legacy.
That is what he would call it. I think that's actually what they define itself as being, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, maybe.
And basically what they do is they are taking current day versions of the superheroes and they're going back in time through some sort of weird framing device to meet the previous or first person to take up the mantle of their role in a sort of trying to pass the torch in a way of making it so that the audiences of today can connect to the past and understand what the lineage of this is.
So.
I mean, again, it falls into the legacy thing of that Marvel is doing.
They've done it with Hawkeye. Kelly Thompson did a really good issue with Hawkeye. Jason Aaron did it with Thor. There are a few other characters in there, and I liked this. I liked it up until the final page.
Right, okay, what was the final page?
Well, it's the bit where Miles randomly, because we have to remember that Miles Morales has been Spider-Man for 6 years now. And there's a really weird note that the issue ends on where it's Miles just kind of freaking out and fanboying over Peter and being like, thank you so much for letting me do this, you're amazing, I never understood what it meant to be Spider-Man and all this crap. When Miles has already gotten past this in the comics multiple times before, it feels like a bit of a step back, really.
I felt that, actually, because it's like I'm a huge fan of Peter Parker. I mean, I don't know who isn't really, but it's like in this one, it played so much on Peter's negatives that I was kind of like, in many ways, Miles has transcended the weaknesses of Peter, and he's actually gone on to do. I'm not saying better things, but more different things.
Well, the point that I made in the review that went up yesterday is that Miles has managed to own his own legacy, and this need for Marvel to remind us of where they came from almost feels dismissive of their own legacies that they've built as individual characters.
It's almost like they don't have the confidence in Miles to stand as Spider-Man on his own. He kind of needs somebody to go like give him the rub and be like, okay, cool. Like it's in wrestling terms, it's like Roman Reigns going over all those people.
I'm gonna pretend like I know what that means.
So I won't say it's a very interesting story either. There was no action in it. It was all storytelling stuff. There was no conflict. I understand that it's meant to be a psychological tale about Peter basically having the worst day. Obviously, Aunt May is in hospital at this point because she's got the blood disease.
Well, it calls back to Amazing Spider-Man 33, which is
one of the iconic
Stan Lee, Steve Ditko comics. And I actually really liked all the stuff they did with that. I thought it was really clever the way Bendis kind of handles the transition between modern day comics tropes and latter day comics tropes. Like when the dialogue shifts to Peter back then, like there's all exclamation marks, all the monologues are external, and the artist, I forgot his name, Perez. Yeah, he actually does a really good job of kind of almost mimicking Ditko in those classic moments, and I really enjoyed that.
Well, I noticed that too, because it was like any time that they were talking in the old style thing, it was the way that they called each other by full names. Yeah. It's like in a modern day comic book, if you went up and met Harry Osborn and you wanted the people at home to know who it was, you just say like, hey Harry, and people would instantly just be like, oh, it's probably Harry Osborn, the way he looks. But they full name each other all the time, and I was just like, God, that really does strike hard how old school comics approach storytelling. And every time that Miles is talking, there's a lot of quips, there's quite quick, fast stuff, and almost a suggestive tone to it, whereas Peter is like on the nose, this is what I'm telling you and this is what I'm feeling.
And I thought it was really clever the way Bendis kind of further extrapolates all the themes from that story, because like even though it is the 60s and it is very external, like people don't give Lee and Ditko enough credit to like show just how traumatic some of these events were for Spidey. Yeah. And what Bendis does really well here is actually a moment where he's like trashing his apartment, he's waiting to get the call that Aunt May is okay, and that's handled really well.
I just wish it was longer.
I wish it was longer.
I felt like it was very rushed at the end, and I didn't feel the emotional weight of Peter actually finally telling somebody about it, like almost part of a healing process to just let it out. But I feel that Miles, he again was fanboying and basically just saying like, oh, it's so important what you've just said.
Again.
And yes, it would be if that was the start of the comic and we spent a long time actually dealing with him going, oh, I can finally let go of this, or I'm struggling with this thing.
And again, it's also the whole thing is that we've seen Miles go through these motions before. Like the whole thing is that we've always known that Miles has struggled to reconcile his identity as Spider-Man. He's been hanging around with Peter quite frequently in the comics. Like I don't feel like this was something that needed to be told, because Miles very much has his own legacy, as is evidenced by the fact he's getting his own film soon. I
mean, it was very much a fluff piece, I would say. Like, I would recommend for anyone who's collecting the Generations thing to give it a read. I mean, there's nothing particularly wrong with it, but it doesn't add anything to Miles and it doesn't really add anything to Peter either.
Yeah.
It's just a kind of confirmation of what you already knew.
It's a nice companion piece.
And I mean, it looks beautiful as well. Like the art style in it is exceptionally good actually, because it does mix that old style drawing with whenever Miles is on his own, he's got much more detailed backgrounds with him. It's kind of a nice little mixture of old and new with that. So yeah, it's worth a read, but I don't know. It's one of the weaker ones in the Generation series, from what I've heard.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on to Dark Knight Batman.
We love this.
The Murder Machine. The front cover alone is worth buying it
With
for.
Bat Terminator tank thing.
I mean, I know you can't really see it that well up here, but what I'm looking at is Batman shooting lasers on a tank with his own face, while Green Lantern is shooting it, and it's firing a Gatling gun that looks like a penis, and they're firing lasers that are digitizing and pixelizing people. It is a perfect representation of what's going on with this storyline. Yeah. It is nuts, absolute balls to the walls, mental, and I really enjoyed this read.
And it's already out of its first printing, so you're gonna have to wait at least another week or two for it to come out. But,
honestly, I thought that there was so much to love about this story. Like, it was emotional, it was action-packed, it was beautifully drawn. Like, some of the designs for the what are they called? The group of the Bad Bats.
The Dark Knights, yeah.
Yeah, the Dark Knights. Like, if I can just find a picture.
All the different Batman of the Metalverse.
Like, I think that right there is such a lovely spread, just because it's like all of the angles, all of the darkness. It really does play on the fact that this is, metal, darkness,
it feels like a Meatloaf album cover in motion, and like a cross between that and James Cameron's sci-fi. It's really good.
But this is the thing, like, Batman always tries to carry off this sense of like darkness and brooding, to the point where it almost does become a bit self-parody, because it's kind of like, that. And I think that this is the perfect antithesis to this, because it's like, be dark and brooding, but let's just go crazy with the metal stuff. Let's throw the horns.
And the best thing about this comic as well is that with most events, you get tie-in books, and they're really superfluous, and they don't add anything to it. Or on the other hand, they step on the toes of the main series, and people have to go out their way to pick this up. You can quite happily read the main metal series without picking this up, but if you do, you're going to have a blast.
Yeah, and alternatively, because I am about to start getting into the metal series, this for me is a perfect in. Like, I'm not entirely sure what's going on in the grand scheme of things, but from what I've gleaned from it, I'm just like, gosh dang, that was really impressive. Yeah. So yeah, that's a definite read for me. That might actually be my comic of the week. Okay. If it weren't for Marvel Legacy #1. Oh boy. This actually blew all of my expectations out of the water, because we got a bit pissy about them.
I feel like my
Wolverine.
rant was completely unjustified now.
Well, no, but that's the thing, because you have to just live in the moment and basically adapt to whatever source material. You can only judge life on the information that it gives you, and the information that it gave us before was a bit crap. Yeah. Whereas, I mean, should we just tell the people at home what the big thing is?
You all have read it. We'll put a big fat spoiler warning.
I'm just put these digits up.
There we go. You've done it now.
The Fantastic Four, they're back.
Yeah.
Very excited about that, actually. And they did it really well.
The way they built to it is brilliant, when you have Johnny and Ben just on the run. They have the Fantastic Flare, which they set off, and then at the end it's Valeria and Franklin, and they're coming through the cosmos. The hand reaches out, and to make things even better, they're wearing the designs that Alex Ross took down from his Instagram.
So it just proves everything we thought was right then.
I'm really excited to pick up the 2-in-1 series that's coming out now, which is apparently all about Ben and Johnny looking to find Reed and Sue. So that could be a Fantastic Four stealth title, in the sense that it introduces them slowly. And
they need to, because I feel like there is a lot going on, a lot to digest in Legacy. Like, if you haven't been reading the tie-in comics that are leading up to this point, there is a lot of questions. I mean, you've read the majority of them, and there were still questions.
Yeah, I've not been keeping up with Iron Man. I was totally confused about the coma Tony thing, but
But there's it deals with every single main character, introduce what you would classify as the new Avengers, whatever they're calling themselves now, because it's who makes up that now? Because we've got Ironheart.
Yeah, Ironheart by Riri Williams, Jane Foster Thor, Sam Wilson Cap.
Yeah, so it's kind of like they're there, but then you've got the old Avengers, the original ones that people would be familiar with, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Then you've got the new Ghost Rider. Then you've got the old Ghost Riders, because you've got the 1 million years BC one, which looked fantastic.
I absolutely love what Jason Aaron did with Robbie Reyes in this issue. Like the whole way they're building up to this threat, and the way that Ghost Rider ties into that, I think is really interesting.
I mean, I love a comic book that leaves you with so many questions, but excited to see where it goes. And we were just talking about wow, okay, so Wolverine's back. What's the Mind Stone? What's he going to use that for?
Yeah.
Like, there's a Celestial, but is this thing the Celestial, or is it just a servant of it? And then it was like, okay, well, what role does Ghost Rider play on it? How is it that it's being pulled into this thing? Like, it's like there are so many questions, and I can't wait for the next issue.
Yeah, and it's not like an ersatz version of DC Rebirth or anything. There are certain similarities in the sense that Aaron uses narration to directly have a conversation with the reader, and he talks about legacy, and it oozes legacy. It's all about that, but it does it in a really, really clever way. And what I just love most about it is it's like it doesn't matter if you're an old fan or a new. This is Marvel's attempt to basically remind you why you fell in love with the universe in the first place.
I mean, I didn't find it heavy-handed. I was really worried when you look at the size of this. You think, okay, that's a big longy, so is there going to be a lot of like absolute schlock in there? But I found that the discussion of legacy, while persistent through the actual narrative, it didn't get overbearing. I was like, it's applicable to every single thing. And when you flip back between characters who are going through their own personal turmoils and then back to the new characters that this is focusing on, you're just kind of like, yeah, there is a lot going on,
and,
but this is carving a path very clearly.
And it totally pulls off how ambitious it is, because it sets up the entire Marvel universe for at least a year. Like, you've got storylines for Daredevil there, like Wilson Fisk running for mayor.
Yeah,
like
just tiny little
little things that they're all just pushing on, and yeah.
But there's one question that we have for you at home, if you've already picked this up. There's a number on a crate.
Yes.
Now, this has been driving us mad. Have you figured out what it is yet?
Well, some other people have I looked it up.
Oh, okay.
And
right, fair enough.
I looked at the number of the crate, and it was from an issue from, I think it was Mystery Comics, from 1939, which is the first appearance of Namor the Submariner.
Okay, so it might be a hint that...
Yeah, there might be some Namor shenanigans going on there. But yeah, basically, when Loki breaks into Area 51 or Area 52, whatever the hell area it is, and they pick out the Mind Stone, the crate itself is labelled M1939.
Yeah.
And yeah,
they showed it quite directly, so it's almost like this is a number worth taking note of. And they love their hints, don't they?
They love them.
And I mean, let's just talk about the art style.
Many different artists.
You cannot. I don't think there's a weak one amongst this. Like, there are so many beautiful shots. Like, I'll do some close-up stuff with the camera later on.
If you go to like the end, it shows you all like the different.
Where's this?
There we go. Like, so, just
wow.
So there's Asad Ribic, Steve McNiven, Chris Samney. So many.
There's at least 12. There's at least 12, 13 people that have worked on this, and to be honest, it's a labour of love. You can tell, like, the emotion that's on most of the characters' faces within this is just lovely. And to be honest, it leaves me just thinking, my wallet is going to take an absolute beating now, because not only do I want to follow this, I want to follow most of the other stories.
Exactly.
Like, I'm really invested in the Ghost Rider.
And
one.
it's I'm really excited.
And a Million
to
Years
see
BC
that goes.
one.
And oh god,
tasty. So that was our thoughts. I mean, if we were to give them very quick marks out of 5, I mean, what would you give Mace Windu?
I gave it 2 stars on the site, so probably 2 out of 5 here as well.
I have to agree with you on that one, because I've not read that one. So Generations to Spiders.
3.
I'd say about 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah, I just think again it's just an average sort of thing. This one, a 4. Yeah, definitely. And this one, I'd say 4.5.
Yeah, I'm so chuffed with it. I was so apprehensive, but I feel like just because of how ambitious it is and how well it pulls off that ambition, it totally negates the smaller flaws that you could even pick out with it.
It's just a lovely piece of storytelling, and it leaves me very excited and hopeful, which I haven't felt in a long while since I met your mum, actually. That has been the first episode of the Panel Pals. Let us know what you thought about them and whether you agree or disagree with our views. It's perfectly fine. We encourage discussion because it's all about positivity, this show. So, as always, like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content like this. I didn't mean to sound as sarcastic as that probably came out, but...
yeah, go on, do it, yeah.
As always, I've been Jules. This has been my son Ewan, and we'll see you soon. Bye.